Betrayal by fiancé and sister. I caught my fiancé in a secret affair with my sister while I'm pregnant. And tomorrow I'm ready to lay it all out in front of the whole family. I'm 28, and we've been together a little over 3 years. We share a home with my 4-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. Just 3 weeks ago, I found out I was expecting again. I was thrilled at first, thinking we were finally moving toward the stable family life I had always dreamed about. But almost immediately, he pulled away. The day after I told him, he started acting cold, coming home late, and never letting his phone out of his sight. The strange calls, the quick-cleared notifications, it didn't take much to make my gut churn. I dug deeper. I almost wish I hadn't. He's been secretly sleeping with my older sister. She has always been the one who brings drama, who smiles in front of others but whispers venom behind my back. But I never thought she'd betray me this way. Reading their messages was like being slapped across the face. They laughed at how oblivious I was. He told her about my pregnancy before even speaking to me about it, and together they mocked how overwhelmed I'd be raising another child. My sister gloated about being the fun one, the favorite, the one everyone supposedly likes more. Meanwhile, I was painted as the boring one who somehow deserved this. I don't even know if they're still sneaking around or if they just enjoyed ridiculing me behind my back. Whenever I confront him, he dismisses it, calls me hormonal, and tells me I'm imagining things. She keeps texting me to stay quiet and stop being dramatic. I've reached my breaking point. My mother keeps urging me to talk it out calmly. But how do you repair something so vile? He assumes I'll just be too shy, too fragile, too pregnant to do anything. But he's wrong. Tomorrow, at my parents' house, during what's supposed to be a joyful family gathering for my pregnancy announcement, I'm going to expose everything. I have the screenshots, the logs, every degrading text. Once everyone is seated, I'll read it out loud. If my world burns down in the process, so be it. At least I'll salvage my dignity. The thought of raising 2 kids alone terrifies me, especially with his lack of financial support. But the idea of staying silent terrifies me more. If they wanted my silence, they should have protected my trust. Update. I actually went through with it. After hours of going back and forth in my mind, I realized I couldn't keep swallowing their betrayal. I called my mom ahead of time to warn her that I was ending things and to brace herself. When I arrived, everyone was already there, my ex-fiancé and sister included. My mother tried to steer me aside, whispering to talk first. But I walked straight into the living room and asked everyone to listen. My sister immediately rolled her eyes and he mumbled under his breath, probably praying I'd stay quiet. Then I started reading their texts. The cruel jokes, the smug comments about me being clueless, the fact that he told her about my pregnancy before telling me, it was all laid bare. I had proof of him sneaking around while I stayed home with my daughter. My sister tried to call me a liar, but the screenshots spoke for themselves. He brushed it off as me overreacting and blamed my emotions. When that didn't work, he stormed out. She followed soon after, crying and calling me a liar in front of everyone. My dad sat silently, my mom was horrified, and I just kept reading until there was nothing left to hide. Since then, he's been bombarding me with messages, half apologies, half accusations about embarrassing him. My sister calls me names and insists I ruined her reputation. Neither has shown any remorse. I don't know if they'll keep seeing each other, but honestly, I don't care anymore. Their masks are gone. Now I'm speaking with a lawyer. I need to protect my daughter and make sure I don't get stuck raising another child with him. It hurts, but at least the truth is out. No more secrets, no more mocking me behind my back. Whatever lies they spin now, I've already put the evidence in the open. That's enough for me to finally walk away with my head held high. Story 2, parents refused my college. Now want wedding money. My parents refused to help pay for my education, but now they want me to cover my sister's extravagant wedding. Am I the bad guy for saying no? I'm 34M, a software developer, and I earn far more than the rest of my family. My dad runs a small hardware store, my mom is a retired music teacher, and I have a younger sister, Catherine, 30. We haven't spoken in 5 years. Catherine has always been spoiled and entitled. Growing up, my parents never reined her in. The breaking point came 5 years ago when I hosted Christmas. She insulted my new apartment, said it was too small in a bad neighborhood, and bragged endlessly about her wealthy boyfriend. I snapped, told her if she had such high standards, she could leave and never come back. She did. Since then, no contact. Fast forward, she's still with the same guy and they're engaged. My parents, in a misguided attempt to keep up appearances with the wealthy in-laws, offered to pay for the venue and daycare. Of course, Catherine's taste is sky-high, way beyond what my parents can afford. Now, with the wedding just months away, they're asking me to pitch in financially. I refused, and here's why. When I was 18, preparing for college, my parents flatly told me they wouldn't contribute a single cent. They said that in their day, turning 18 meant you were on your own, and they believed that would build character. They hadn't saved a dime for either of us. My degree wasn't easy, and working full-time while studying would have tanked my grades. I begged them to at least help me get a loan, but they called borrowing money pathetic and against their morals. After constant arguments, I finally got help from my grandparents co-signing a loan. That's the only reason I finished college. Meanwhile, Catherine never had to worry about it. She never went to school and always planned to marry or take over the family business. And now here we are. So when my parents asked me for money, I reminded them of their own words, that borrowing or depending on others was wrong. They looked stunned, like they never expected me to remember. But I remembered every bit. They walked away quietly at first, but soon enough, relatives started calling, saying I had humiliated my parents and was holding grudges. My parents spread the story that I'd changed after making money and was lording it over them. In reality, I was just holding them accountable for their hypocrisy. I wasn't invited to Catherine's wedding, which I expected. But then my parents came back furious, saying Catherine banned them too because they couldn't cover the costs they promised. She didn't want to look bad to her in-laws. Now they're trying to pin the blame on me, saying if I had just helped, none of this would have happened. But I didn't push them into promising money they didn't have. Catherine's entitled behavior is their creation, not mine. They call me selfish. The rest of the family sides with them, but I don't think I'm wrong. If my education wasn't worth their support, why should her wedding be worth mine? Update 1: I've decided to cut ties with my entire family, aside from my grandparents. Both my mother's and father's sides have turned against me, which is unbelievable. My mom's parents are gone, but my dad's parents are still around, and thankfully they've been on my side. They've tried to keep things peaceful, but even they're exhausted with all the family drama. Arguments have always existed in this family, but now their resentment for me has united them. If nothing else, at least I've given them one thing to bond over. I've blocked everyone else because I don't need any more chaos in my life. Someone online pointed out that the real reason they're all so quick to hate me might be jealousy. Honestly, that makes sense. I don't like to boast, but I'm doing significantly better in life than most of my relatives, and it clearly bothers them. As a kid, I never followed their advice. Many told me to go into business, take over my dad's store, and forget about the internet nonsense. Well, that so-called nonsense is now my career. Not only am I in a much stronger position financially and professionally than most of my cousins, but I think their parents resent me for it as well. It confuses me because I think family should celebrate each other's successes, not resent them. But that was never how things worked with my family. Sometimes it makes me sad, but there's nothing I can do to change it. My parents, I'm sure, are enjoying the fact that the rest of the family has turned on me. They blame me for not being invited to my sister's wedding, even though they brought it on themselves. We haven't spoken since they last came to my place, accusing me of destroying their bond with my sister. I still don't understand their logic. My grandparents told me they've stopped talking to my parents too, which says a lot. My grandparents helped my parents countless times over the years, yet they don't seem to remember or appreciate it. That actually makes me feel a little relieved, because if I had bylaid them out, they probably would have forgotten about my help in no time. They take advantage of everyone. At least now someone is finally forcing them to face the consequences, even if it had to be Catherine of all people. Update 2: something unexpected happened yesterday. I didn't have time to share until now, but after I got home from work, Catherine showed up at my door. It completely shocked me since we hadn't spoken in 5 years. Given our history, I was certain she came to ask for money for her wedding, especially since our parents were out of the picture. But surprisingly, she didn't start with that. She began by apologizing for her behavior in the past. She explained that with her wedding coming up, she wanted to make amends before beginning this new chapter. She even invited me personally, saying I was the first person she wanted to extend the invitation to as a way of proving she was sincere. She admitted she had been spoiled, but put the blame partly on our parents for never correcting her. Now that she's older, she realizes how toxic she was and said she's trying to right her wrongs. She wanted to start with me since, as her brother, I'd had to endure the worst of it. I listened quietly. After she finished, I told her I was glad she was taking responsibility and that it was a good step. But I also knew she probably hadn't come only to apologize, so I waited. Sure enough, she shifted to talking about our parents. She said she knew how unfair they had been to me, and admitted she heard from relatives that they were calling me petty and selfish for not helping with her wedding. She reassured me she agreed it wasn't my duty. Then came the real reason for her visit. She confessed our parents had pulled back the financial support they promised after the fight. That left her in a bind, since now her fiancé's family would have to cover everything, which embarrassed her. She begged me to step in, insisting she'd repay me by the end of the year. She even offered to make it official with paperwork, saying she just needed to save face with her fiancé. I'll admit, I was surprised she offered repayment and seemed desperate to prove she wasn't trying to use me. Still, I told her I needed time to think. I didn't feel comfortable jumping into it, given our strained history. She didn't take that well. She argued that she wasn't even asking for as much as our parents had promised, as though that made her request generous. That's when I realized her apology was just a setup for her real goal, money. I told her she was just like our parents, self-centered and manipulative. That pushed her over the edge. She started screaming and I told her to leave. When she refused, I physically guided her out the door. She shouted threats about calling the police, but I didn't care. Eventually, she stormed off. At first, I was furious, but now I just laugh at how ridiculous the whole thing was. Update 3: a few weeks later, something surprising happened. I got a wedding invitation from Catherine. Honestly, I thought she'd withdrawn it after our fight, so I was caught off guard. I reached out to her for clarity, and she eventually called me back. On the phone, she was cold at first, but when I asked directly, she said her earlier apology had been genuine. She claimed she had handled the money issue herself and no longer needed any financial help. She insisted she wanted me there because she truly wanted to mend things. She also said she was determined not to turn into our parents, who had spent their lives pointing fingers and playing the victim. I asked her whether she planned to invite them. That's when she explained that she never actually uninvited anyone. She had been upset with them, yes, but they were the ones who assumed they weren't welcome. Instead of working it out directly, they spread their version of events to the rest of the family. That's typical of them: complain to others, smear us, but never address problems face to face. Catherine said that while the family hasn't turned on her as harshly as they did me, they still defend our parents' actions. She's undecided about including them because she doesn't want added stress at her wedding. To me, it's obvious our parents treat us differently. They see Catherine as someone they may still lean on in the future, so they're leaving the door open. With me, they've already closed it and painted me as the villain. Still, Catherine seems to be realizing the truth. She even apologized again for her outburst at my house and said she genuinely wanted me there. I haven't decided whether to attend, but I told her I'd think about it. I also spoke with my grandparents, who said if I chose to go, they'd attend too. That gave me some comfort. It's not easy to rebuild a broken relationship, but I don't want to carry grudges forever either. Update 4, final yesterday, I actually went to Catherine's wedding, and I walked her down the aisle. Our parents never apologized or reached out beforehand, so they weren't invited. Catherine was devastated by that for a while, but eventually, she asked me if I'd stand in for them. She told me she needed someone by her side, and I agreed without hesitation. I couldn't stand the thought of her going through such an important day without support, especially because of how selfish our parents had been. For years, I thought they'd only cut me off because Catherine was their favorite. But now I see their pride runs so deep that they'll even abandon her when it matters most. Honestly, part of her bratty behavior in the past was their fault. They never disciplined her, never guided her, and essentially enabled her worst qualities. While she's responsible for her choices, our parents certainly shaped the environment that allowed it. Still, she has changed. At the wedding, she seemed genuinely remorseful. She even stood before the small group of guests and apologized, while her fiancé also came up to me privately and said sorry for his behavior years ago. Before the ceremony, Catherine nearly broke down, crying over the fact that our parents wouldn't be there. Her fiancé, our grandparents, and I all reassured her not to let them ruin her moment. Thankfully, she pulled herself together and carried on. I know things aren't magically perfect now, but I believe she's serious about being different. She truly seemed grateful for my support, and for once, I felt like she meant every word she said. Some people may think I was wrong to forgive her, but I don't see it that way. Holding on to resentment forever would only weigh me down. For the first time in years, I feel like Catherine, and I might actually have a chance to build a real sibling bond. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave a comment, hit subscribe, follow for more, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss the next one.